It's now time for the Eld Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, which airs each Wednesday evening from 6 o'clock p.m. until 7 o'clock p.m. here on WMPR. We now take you to Studio B for the Eld Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize with Dr. Henderson.
Hello, everybody. This is the Eld Henderson's Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize. I want to tell you, folks, I want you to buy my book by the same title, Organize, Don't Criticize, at Amazon.com. You need to learn how to pool your resources, build coalitions, and promote unity with self, family, and community. Your life will change in 30, 60, or 90 days, guaranteed. Organize, Don't Criticize, Amazon.com. That's the book of the century. Buy it today. Hello, everybody. This is the Eld Henderson Real News Show, WMPR, Facebook, YouTube, all over the world. And today I'm glad to be here. I have a lot of folks talking about it. Some good and some not so good. That's normal. Whenever you have that, ladies and gentlemen, you're doing a good deed. Some people criticizing you and others are talking about organizing, and that's what it's all about. And that's why, folks, I'm going to be doing the same thing today, talking about organization, management, and giving you some information on how you can change some things if you want change, or you can continue to do what you're doing and suffer the consequences of evil. And think about this war that's going on, World War III, Part 1 and 2, where over 38 different nations are involved directly and I would say indirectly, 37 different nations. So that's a world war. And everything has happened that I've been predicting for the last 30 years. And today, when I talk about the topic that is very important, I think you're going to see what I've been saying sometime, that there will be some rough times ahead, because the leaders in the world are saying there's a time for everything. I believe they've been reading the Bible a little bit. You can find that little title in Ecclesiastes. I believe it's in chapter 2, where it says there's a time for everything, the good and bad. And if you live long enough, you're going to be involved in all of it. That's why we are going to talk about something that is totally different this evening. We're going to talk about the historical black colleges and universities, and we'll look at several things: growth, instability, and the fight for success. I have an expert with me again this evening. You know I like experts. Last week we had two experts on, Dr. McHenry and Dr. Felix Okoji. They were international higher education experts. And now I have a local and national expert that's born right here in the great state of Mississippi. And his name is Dr. Timothy Rush. We're going to talk about these black colleges and universities. Some call it, Dr. Rush, HBCUs, historical black colleges and universities. You have heard of that?
Certainly.
You know about it. And I understand that you had an opportunity to attend one of those colleges when you got that big old PhD.
Yes, sir.
Where was that, sir?
Jackson State University, D.I. Love.
D.I. Love. I heard, too, that you were very involved in community activities. Did you play a little baseball?
No, sir. I was student government. Student government. Yes, sir.
You
cut my teeth in leadership.
Okay, so that's why you got that undergraduate in criminal justice and sociology and all that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
I also understand you used to work with the government. You worked with independent contractors. Did you work with the Job Corps?
Yes, sir. I did.
I'm leading.
Like yourself.
That's right. I'm leading somewhere. You know a lot about students, student affairs, leadership, fundraising. You know how to get a little money and make it big. That's what black college and universities are doing. And I just want you to tell us briefly, what have you been doing recently? I say during the last 10 years in education, and just talk about some of the impact that you think you have made since you worked here in the state of Mississippi at what we call a historical Black college?
Thank you, Dr. Henderson, and thank you for having me and for inviting me. First of all, a little backdrop. You know, you and I go back probably, I guess, about 20 plus years now, in that when I first arrived at the Utica campus of Hines Community College, you kind of took me under your wings and explained to me how important it was to meet students where they are and the help they needed. And when you cleaned them up and got them ready with their GED, that I need to be ready to get them on into the college. And I think we made a pretty good team. But having said that, actually it all started for me, as you stated, with Job Corps. After a short career in Job Corps that took me to South Carolina, I came back to Mississippi and cut my teeth in student affairs at Tougaloo College, working my way up to assistant vice president. And about 2000, I accepted a position as dean of students at the Utica campus of Hines Community College. Spent about 23 years with Hines, but about 20 at the Utica campus, and my last 2.5 at the Jackson branch.
Okay, well, that's real good. So you have a great history at a historical Black college then. You know, Utica campus of the Hines is a historical Black college.
Certainly.
A lot of people don't know that. And we have a lot of them in Mississippi. A lot of those colleges in Mississippi.
Certainly.
We have Alcorn State University, Jackson State, Hines Community College, Utica campus, Mississippi Valley, Russ College, and Tougaloo College. All are historical Black universities. Now, why did these places start? So most of them started in the mid 1860s up until about 1921.
Yes, sir. Well,
why did they start, as you know from history?
Well, the skinny of it all, as it relates to the private schools, really emerged because slave owners wanted somewhere where their kids could go to school.
What kids? They're Black kids?
No doubt about it.
Tell me about that.
Well, they couldn't go to the majority institutions because they were 1/5, if you would. Therefore, they created opportunities for them to be educated other places, because I guess there still was an affection in that was their blood. So they wanted them to have opportunity for higher education.
Now, you know, a lot of people don't want to hear this, and a lot of people don't believe it. But, you know, we always do some research, and we found here recently, we looked at about 30 different historical Black university, college, and university yearbook prior to the 1960s.
I know where you're going.
Where am I going? Everybody was mulatto. All the Miss whoever, the Miss Jackson States, the Miss Tougaloo's,
almost
the
the
Miss
House and
Hampton,
Field concept.
the Miss Spellmans, and
No doubt
all
about
of
it. No doubt
everyone.
about it. Certainly.
And that's why you find that these schools were set up
Right.
to put those mulatto-tized Americans there because they couldn't go to their father's school in most cases.
And ironically, a lot of them were financed by the churches.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And the Carnegie Foundation.
No doubt about
They
it.
all work together. And now these same schools are here today,
Certainly.
and they have several problems. One is a lack of funds, instability, and most of them are barely surviving, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we're going to talk about, Dean. We're going to talk about some of those problems so our listeners and viewers can understand that with historical Black college and universities, you know, there are about 107 in America.
Correct.
And most of them are in the South.
Right.
And I want people to understand that if you think the historical Black college is about to disappear, you will find that your thinking is correct. But it's not going to happen. We're going to have to start with a new thinking pattern, because there are some ideas floating around. And that's what I want to share with the people today, that even though we are at that instability, the growth is non-equitable compared to the other college universities in the respect
at Jackson State University with. And we were birthed out of a lot of complaints we heard as it relates to students being able to get into our institution. And in some cases, some of their kids had difficulty. So we started out trying to help the previous administration at Jackson State navigate through some of those landmines, if you will. And in doing so, we spent a lot of time in the last 2.5 years, I believe now, to date, trying to take a deep dive into some of the shortcomings of higher education and some of the corrective measures that we think would be necessary to go forward. So having said that, you asked the question previously, how was the private schools successful pre-72? I think, well, first of all, let's go back maybe to the 40s and the 30s where we talk about perhaps bartering and also sweat equity, in that people who attended those schools understood that you brought a cow or whatever you had and just simply told the president or the dean, here's my son, Eldridge, please send him to me back better than what I'm bringing to you. And Eldridge understood that he had to mop, clean, cut grass, whatever that was, to become a better man and also to pay his tuition.
Well, that's exactly true. But I had a chance to go to Utica Institute before it became a public institute, and I was very fortunate. When I left, my mom and dad told me before I got on the bus, say, you are not going to live on campus. We're going to finance your education. And they were very kind to me. They gave me $5. And I'd never had $5 before. And I was 18 years old at the time.
Yes, sir.
I went down there rich in my mind and was able to survive 2 years, starting with that $5. And you're exactly right. You had whatever you had, and they would give you an opportunity. There wasn't no such thing as you had to make a certain score on the ACT or any other test.
Correct.
You showed up with the will, and those black presidents and deans and teachers would make a way.
Exactly.
And that's what they need to do today, and they're still doing that.
Well, I reference that, Dr. Henderson, because unlike yourself, sweat equity, bartering, what have you, I was a Pell Grant baby. And I know, to your generation, you probably couldn't grasp, how they going to school on a Pell Grant.
Well, you're right. They didn't have Pell Grants.
I do understand. Certainly.
No student loans.
I think maybe when you came back from the war,
yeah,
you probably had difficulty even getting your VA loan.
They had everything going on then, but
I mean,
it did take a while.
Yeah,
it did take a while to get it.
Right. Well, people of color, always more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
No different than soldiers trying to get housing loans. Always had more difficulty in the majority group. But having said that, also they were financed by what we call these singing groups, these traveling singing groups. And believe it or not, as we speak, Tougaloo, the Elzonora Coleman Library, is currently housing the Jubilee exhibit with Dr. Cooper. Yes, sir.
Right. The
yes,
famous
sir. With Dr. Bobby G. Cooper. No doubt about it.
Great man.
And I challenge anyone that has an opportunity in the area to please visit the campus. I think the exhibit leaves on the 7th. And I think today is about the 3rd. Is it
4th, I believe.
Okay, I think it leaves on the 7th. And it's a traveling exhibit. I think this on loan, if I'm not mistaken, from Two Rivers. So please, by all means, get by and see it, because those groups also traveled and generated income. Pineywood Cotton Blossom Singers traveled up north to secure funds to come back to pay the bills.
And that's what they are doing today. But now, it's focused on tuition, which is very, very limited.
Certainly.
You also have all these Pell Grants and loans that the student get. That's prohibitive, because
Correct.
If you finish college, as you know, Dean, and you had a lot of students in your program finishing college with $30,000 and $40,000 and $50,000 after they left your school,
No doubt.
went to the senior colleges.
No doubt.
And today, some of those students are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and I run across them from time to time. They still owe $40,000 and $50,000, and some of them are retired in student loans.
And I'm glad that's a lead in, Dr. Henderson, because having you say that, that's why it's so important that we go and vote on March 10th. Joe Biden, President Biden, had given us reparations when he began to write off student loans, and we didn't have the wherewithal to reelect him. And we still out here today hollering, nobody ever given us reparations. And he was writing off student loans. And I know people personally, lawyers and doctors, who had the luxury of getting $100,000 plus written off. Now, that's reparations.
Now, you were saying then that that was a good thing.
No doubt about it.
Now you are saying that something happened that put what we call a temporary or permanent stall to those reparations.
When we didn't elect Sister Harris.
Oh, yes.
Certainly.
So
when we put Redhead in the White House, he began to cut everything that we fought for, including our history.
Okay. So you're saying that we have something going on, Dr. Rush, and
Certainly.
I'm going to have to talk about it after this break.
Certainly.
We got a break coming up in pretty soon, but I want people to know that from time to time, you all might get a pause or what we call a blackout. We're having some internet problems. I don't know whether it's happened yet, but if you have a little, what I call temporary pause in the show, is something that we can't control at this time, but we have our internet provider working on it, and just bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. So you saying the current president took those reparations from the white and black college students that are already given to them? I
was speaking to a personal friend last evening, and I did not know that he was one of those Elon Musk casualties. He had a federal job, and he was a casualty in that first 60, 90 days when they began to just cut for the sake of cutting. And the country basically is crippled with all of this incompetent leadership. But anyway, Doc, we ain't gonna fool with him. Let's get back to them black colleges in Mississippi. That's what I want.
That's part of the black college. You're not
you're
off
right,
base.
You're right. We're not getting funding. You're very correct.
You're not off base.
You're very correct. We're not getting the funding.
A lot of those people that had those so-called good jobs, and they were associated with this so-called DEI concept. And the basic deal is, when you start talking about diversity and equity and things of that nature,
right,
you are always being accused of taking someone's job. If a person comes from a certain station in life and get a so-called good job working for the state or federal government or some other corporation, wouldn't you attribute this to the fact that they had decided, and when I say they, I mean the government institution with their systemic racist attitudes and their ability to miseducate permanently, even when they had institutions, that it was by design or by accident? Which one would you look at from your experience?
By design, Dr. Henderson, in that just the very fact that we sit here tonight on your TV station is a spite to the majority group, because that was not supposed to happen. You are supposed to be in Bolton, Mississippi, chopping cotton.
Oh, yes?
Yes, sir.
Well, that won't happen, sir.
Well, that's why you see an attack on education, not just higher education, also K through 12. And unfortunately, Dr. Henderson, it's just this black man's opinion. We put too much faith into charter school. We see clearly that the majority group has an exodus as it relates to K through 12. But it's one of those situations where we have a classic opportunity to hone our own skills, generate whatever energy we need to ensure that our students are successful, to be able to provide for themselves, but we walk away from it chasing the majority group. Point in case, I remember my days at Utica. In some cases, we would argue about what the Raymond campus had. And then on the other hand, somebody whispered in my ear, they say, you know, it's separate and unequal, but we really have a private school. We control our own destiny. Now, you and I both know, God bless his soul, we didn't think too positively of Dr. George A. Barnes at the time, George E. Barnes, but looking back, he preserved our identity and culture and made sure that we made sure the students got a cultural education. Now we own to something when you know who you are and whose you are. It does us no good to fatten rats for cats if you're not going to come back into the village and help us uplift our people. Then what's the purpose of education?
Well, according to some, Dean, the purpose of education, the purpose is very specific. You're supposed to look at where you are and improve yourself educationally, economically, socially, and politically. But you know that most of our people now don't vote in America. I'm not talking about Mississippi.
That's right. That's right.
About 35% vote nationally, and about 25 to 27% vote in the state of Mississippi. So politically, we are not going to ever make much progress with that small voting ratio in this state and other southern states. So the funding for these black schools is going to have to come from other sources other than what we have here, tuition and loan.
See, you keep driving back in this corner, but I'm going to keep coming out.
Come on out, sir.
See, ever since we've been under this Republican leadership, we suffered.
Ever since, you say?
Ever since. I think.
Tell me about it.
Am I correct when I say maybe Governor Russ Musgrove was the last Democratic governor?
I believe so.
That means we've had, what, 3 Republican governors? Fordyce, Bryan, Reeves. And I think they both served 2 terms. So we're talking 8, 16, 20. Oh, Lord, how much? You see where I'm going.
Exactly.
So we suffered. Thus, we look at the College Board, the makeup of the College Board. Republicans picked. Now the question becomes, are they trying to elevate or increase the productivity of our universities, or are they trying to increase the productivity of their university? Let me spin it. If Jews are helping Jews, Italians are helping Italians, whites are helping whites, who gonna help us?
We're going to have to do it ourselves.
What we waiting on?
Well, you're waiting on tomorrow. We'd like to procrastinate. We want to wait until things get better. We want to wait until tomorrow. We want to wait until a Democrat get in office. On and on and on. And while you're waiting, you're getting deeper and deeper in the trenches. And when you get to the point where you can't do anything, you give up. And that makes the opponents mighty happy.
When a gospel song once said, don't wait till tomorrow because tomorrow might be too late.
That's exactly
well,
what
why
I'm
we
talking
waiting till
about.
Tomorrow, Doc?
Well, we've been taught that, sir.
Oh,
we have been taught
Okay.
to wait. We have been taught to forgive. We have been taught to look at what we have as something that is inferior to others. So therefore, we were taught, and I lost a job because of that, that you're supposed to fight to get yourself killed in order to get something from others. And that's the way I lost my first public social club job when I was at a certain university as the vice president of the student NAACP group.
Yeah, right.
And they had Dr. Martin Luther King and Jesse Jackson and others were coming down and sending people to Jackson so they can teach us how to receive the water hose, the dogs, the batons,
preparing you how to ride.
Go down Jackson to get beat up.
Teach you how to ride.
So they would call us into the place and go through the scenario. So you're late. That's part of it. That's right. Copo. And they would teach us how to curl up and receive a beating. And one day I thought about that. I said, I'm not going to get involved in this anymore. So I went and told a certain person at the Masonic Temple, I'm not going to call his name. He said, no, you can't do that. And they took my job. Now, I wasn't getting paid, but I was from Bolton, Mississippi at the time, and that was the first job I had as a leader, so-called. And they took my job because I wouldn't go and teach the other students how to receive those beatings and horses running over them and water hoses. And they told me I couldn't work anymore.
So you don't want to say Emmett Barnes?
It wasn't him.
Oh, okay.
It was someone with an office in the Masonic Temple.
Okay.
On the second
Well, I know
floor.
he was field executive, director when you was working that way.
I'm not going to call the name. But anyway, sir, I'm just giving you some examples of what these black colleges
I do
are
understand.
up against.
I do understand. And I want to go further when I say
Let's do it.
IHL, thus, again, go back to the 1877project.org for those of you that would like to visit us on Facebook and see some of the work we're doing. Doc, we've been attacked, and when you fight for what you know is right, you're going to be attacked. There are those who ask the question, what are they doing? Who are they? Who told them to organize, as though we need right or approval from somebody. We simply saw a situation where we were unhappy with the results. We have watched 3 consecutive presidents embarrass our institution. We have watched the same chairman select that leadership. We have watched the same commissioner accept that leadership. And I was thinking just the other day, because we've been in the audience with them or in their company. And I go back to Dr. Peoples' administration as a student. And I remember when E. Thrash was the commissioner of higher education. And everybody knows the story. That's the commissioner that was successful in enforcing Dr. Peoples out. But he was more cordial than the leadership we currently have that look like me and you. Now that's mind-boggling to me.
In what way, sir?
Well, to this day, we have been into about maybe 5 or 6 board meetings in the last couple of years, because they go into executive session, they go into closed meetings, they do Zoom meetings, anything to keep you chasing the tail. So they play those kind of games. We get to the board meeting. I've never seen a deliberation or debate or discussion about an item. It's always approved. So I'm assuming we at the second meeting. When you get ready to ask for information, you have to do a open act request. It's just all these games they playing. And we as a people sitting at home, for the lack of better terminology, Doc, we playing crazy. And as the children use their vernacular, these people are playing in our face. And now we on the clock in terms of identifying leadership. And we ask one question, and we are waiting on that question to be answered, because I must put a footnote in it. There is no opportunity for public comment. So we have written maybe 2 or 3 letters of correspondence to the commissioner and to the board. And we always get the same old song and dance. We have read your letter and we are responding that we will be sure to get it to all the other board meetings and members, and they will be sure to read it and we will take it into consideration. Now we want some mic time. We don't understand how a public entity don't have to give its citizenry an opportunity to speak.
Well, I can tell you why, and
Talk
then
to
I'm going to
me.
let you do it. See, when you are in charge of something, and the people that you're in charge have been trained so well through what we call the process of miseducation and religion, until they're not going to fight against anything, because we want to be comfortable, Dr. Rush. And when I say we, I'm talking about a majority of black people that I know and have worked with for years, we want to be comfortable so we can get ourselves ready for the kingdom. Now, I don't like to say this, but I just have to tell the fact about it because I have a lot of relatives that way.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of friends, old and young, that all they want to do, and I've said it so many times, ladies and gentlemen, I'm embarrassed to say it, is to love their enemies, do the best they can to forgive them, and just suffer here in this world and die and go to heaven. And they don't believe in doing like the president is doing today in America, where you have a problem with somebody, you go and fight them. And that's what you are saying, you and your group are doing. You are preparing a plan where you're going to fight. I call it a strategic plan, come hell or high water. And one day you're going to be heard because if you fight long enough,
you're
going to have some good
Dr.
results.
Henderson, man, I apologize because all kind of emotions and thoughts are going through because you touching on a lot of different issues. But I guess it also brings me back to the congressional race.
The current one.
The current race.
Let's talk about it.
Well, everybody talking about Congressman Thompson, but nobody talking about our local legislators. I ain't seen no Baker. You're
not going to see any. Our local legislators are as quiet as a sick mouse. Well, they not organized to the point where they have the power and ability to get with their opponents in the House and the Senate and make things happen. They don't have the belief in themselves that they ought to get with those folks and negotiate and say, I'm going to vote against this unless you vote for me in something. That's what many people are doing.
Can I tell you where I'm going?
Let's do it.
You had a list of those HBCUs. I think you missed Kahoma, didn't you? I didn't hear you say Kahoma.
Well, that is one of them.
Okay.
Kahoma Junior College.
Correct. Henderson. As I was saying, my committee, the 1877project.org, THEE. We've been trying to push the envelope, and people look at us because we making them feel uncomfortable. I guess we're not supposed to come and ask for any accountability. Our people in leadership are too comfortable. Our people suffering, and I guess they drinking cognac and smoking cigars, and our people suffering. I watched one white legislator basically say it won't be no teacher pay raise because he was mad because they didn't pass the education bill to give private schools money. So what do? He killed teacher pay raise. How can that be?
Power. That's what it is.
Well, let me say this then, Doc. I clearly understand my one vote, but sometimes your voice supersedes your vote. You can speak truth to power, but in order to do so, you have to open your mouth. Everybody knows a closed mouth don't get fed. For instance, there are those that say the power brokers in the state when it comes to Jackson State and other HBCUs are saying now that Southern Miss University and Ole Miss are graduating more African-American students than Jackson State. But what they don't tell you, because the devil's always in the detail, they don't tell you that we don't have the equivalency in terms of scholarship dollars. They have not provided the funding for residence halls or academic buildings or academic programs. So when they take your funding, as my daddy would say, cut your legs off and call you shouted. How can you be successful? And then when they see you garnering progress with a program, i.e., my undergraduate days, Jackson State had a stellar or flagship computer science program. Enrollment bursting at the scene. What happens? They direct the funding to Southern Miss. Everybody know Dr. LaFleur had one of the most stellar computer science programs in the country. So I'm going back to this board situation because it is crippling our growth. I'm an advocate for our own personal or private board. There are those that say we can't fund it. To those people, I say, well, explain to me how Louisiana and Alabama does it. I think anybody would say that Southern Baton Rouge and Grambling are vibrant universities. Anybody would say Alabama State, Alabama A&M are vibrant universities. Why couldn't we not have that same model and pick our leadership? What are you saying, Rush? I'm glad you asked. I'm saying I don't believe in my heart of hearts that IHL is trying to get Jackson State or any other HBCUs the best leadership.
Well, now you are saying that this is a deliberate act, sir.
No doubt about it. Orchestrated.
Poor leadership for these state
orchestrated
black colleges and universities.
Dr. Henderson, God revealed it to me upon the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson. When I looked on Facebook and saw Jesse Jackson and Dr. Peoples walking across the campus with their fists up in the air, I said, that's why they fired Dr. Peoples. Because nobody has said that to this day, why they terminated. There was a movement. They were registering people of color. And perhaps Jesse Jackson is the reason that we began to get those Democratic governors, because he certainly impacted voter registration.
Most certainly true.
No doubt about it.
Now you find, sir, when you look at the man you were talking about, Jesse Jackson and Dr. People. Dr. People, was what I call a quiet radical.
Yes, sir.
He had a plan and he walked real smooth. He didn't do any skinning and grinning, very serious. And he would make his presentations to the board, and he got more done than I think any president they have ever had at Jackson State University, until he got to the point where he was making so much progress. I understand one of the board members called him when he was at a conference somewhere and say, Doc, when you get back, you're fired, you pack up your stuff and leave. Didn't accuse him of anything like mismanagement.
Exactly.
Or not
Couldn't hang
anything.
their head on nothing.
And that's the way it goes. And since that time, I have been here and there in Mississippi and other states and watching what happened at Alcorn, MBSC, and Jackson State.
Yes, sir.
And they have had so many political changes in these schools. Every 3.5 years or so, they are changing their president at Jackson State, MVSC, or Alcorn.
Now, Doc, quite frankly now, in our case with the last 3 appointments, because you can't call them a selection because they were appointed, they did it to themselves.
Who did?
The CEOs, the presidents.
All right.
They did it to themselves. But my point is, we need the opportunity to select our own leadership. I know I could have picked better candidates than the last 3. Doc, me and you know better educated administrators than what we had up there.
Well, now that might not be something that's off base. We do know some great.
I know, because here's the deal, Doc. Right. I remember my days at Tougaloo College, and the president at the time was intentional about creating Black millionaires. Thus, he met with 3 contractors, small contractors, minority contractors, and he presented a plan where they would combine their resources and increase their funding to build a residence hall. After that, they was on their way, Doc. What are you saying,
Did
Rush?
they do it, Dean?
Yes,
Did
sir.
they do that?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. So what I'm saying, when we're in leadership at these institutions, if we don't do business with us, how are we going to get scholarship dollars? How are we going to put money back into the infrastructure? See, at Mississippi State, when I give you the resident hall contract and you build a resident hall for $150 million, I'm not surprised when you come back and say, take this 10 million and give it toward student scholarships. But we can't make any money, but we constantly have to ask each other for money. That's a bad recipe, Doc.
Well, that is true. But see, when you look at these big state institutions, they make an effort, a strong effort, to determine who is going to get the contract, because we have something called that Mississippi list
That's
of
right.
contractors.
That's right.
And they already
Pre-approved.
pre-certified
That's
and
right.
qualified according to their standards.
And it's probably no different than what we're watching now during the court system with DHS. The head man tell you who to get the money to.
That's how simple it is.
Over with. The lady said, I was mandated. And she said, I got tired of it.
And she is
And she pleaded guilty.
she is alluding that she knew some of those people were not qualified.
Exactly. And they didn't do the work.
Didn't do the work.
Now, can you imagine what any of those HBCUs could have did with $5 million?
They could have made so much progress until the Chinese and the Russians would be sending advisors over here to talk to them and find out what they did with all that money and how they made all that progress. So
Doc,
they can duplicate.
I'm gonna break my leg. I'm gonna break my leg.
Break
here,
it,
but
sir,
but I
break
want
it.
you to roll with me now.
Okay.
We have to be careful also to always remember why our institutions exist. They don't exist for bands and football. That's an auxiliary. They exist for educating our people. We can't lose focus, Doc. And I think in some cases, some of our schools lose focus. We put more emphasis on those 12 or 13 Saturdays in the fall than we do in academic preparation. I can remember the Tougaloo story where President Owens said he wanted a doctor, a Black doctor, and a Black physician in all 82 counties of Mississippi. Now, explain to me how Tougaloo has been so successful in producing all those doctors and lawyers, and they don't have a med school.
But let me tell you how they did it.
Talk
And you
to me.
already know it.
Talk to me.
They had the vision and the foresight to say, if I can't do it in my state with state money or even my money, I'm going to go and build a partnership with someone that has the funds and the resources to make it happen. And they found some of the best students at Tougaloo, and they had the same program with the legal entity and sent them to medical school and to law school.
Now you also stepped into something else. Under Dr. Peoples' leadership, there was pushback in terms of professors getting their terminal degrees. But Dr. Peoples was successful in getting the funding, although they had to go to school out of state.
That's exactly true.
But thus, he began the transformation from a college to a university. Once he got the faculty with the credentials that was needed, he delivered a better product, and Jackson State began to burst out of the seams. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I experienced upwards of 12,000 when I was a sophomore in terms of enrollment. We are substantially down today, and I understand why. And that's my point. back to my point, Doc. Isn't it ironic that every fall or every January during registration, we hear the same old song? There's no housing at Valley. There's no housing at Alcorn. There's no housing at Jackson State. Have you ever heard anybody say there's no housing at Ole Miss?
Never have.
No housing at Mississippi State?
Never have.
You have never heard anybody say no housing at Delta State?
You're not going to hear it.
Doc, we got to get out here and fight for our students. I mean, it's literally a fight. These people don't take us serious, Doc. And we sitting back, relaxed. We too comfortable. Why?
Well, it's because
Somebody fought for us.
Well, let me tell you the real problem. See, when you have things under your control, you're always going to recruit and find someone that'll do exactly what you want. And then you appoint him or her to be your yes man or woman to maintain the status quo. Now, you know, I don't like to say that, but that's just a historical fact.
Yeah.
I know if I was controlling all the money, had all the contractors in my hand, had the ability to make all the decisions on who is going to purchase what, I would look out for my interests and my people and not other folks' interests and people. And that's what the major policymakers are doing in America when it comes to the black colleges and universities.
Okay, well, kick the knuckleball in, Doc.
Let's do it.
Supposedly, we settled the Ayers case. And from looking at one of the bills that passed recently, where I think Jackson State and Alcorn and Valley has to split a little pool of money. And I mean a little pool, I think it's like 1.6 mil, if I heard correct. So that means there's a pot of money somewhere with our name on it that they're giving it to us in installments when we have all these deferred maintenance problems. See, a couple of times, at least once a year, I know, legislators travel the state visiting different campuses to kind of get a need assessment. Now, I know they can clearly see the difference in Jackson State in Southern Mississippi, Delta State and Mississippi Valley. Where's the funding?
Well, the funding has been answered. You just answered it. They gave the funding to the schools you mentioned. They give you an example. Back in the 1960s, if you would attend Jackson State, right on Lynch Street there, they had black businesses from Lynch Street on both sides.
That's right.
Down to downtown. And now you can look at that same area starting from the corner there of Lynch Street, headed downtown.
But don't get me started
You
on
will
road. Don't get me
find-
started on
you will
road
find-
Black Wall Street.
You
man.
will find, I'm not going to talk about Black Wall Street, but that's what Jackson State
Well, they-
was at that time.
Well,
Lynch Street
every
was.
time we build something, they
That's
come
right.
and try to burn it down.
And now look at that area, the same area we're talking about. I noticed now they're running some pipes on that side.
On the
where them-
parkway.
where them
Right,
you know,
right.
the so-called parkway.
Correct.
So that means something is going down. And when a decision is made, you will not find anybody looking like you or me going to be making a decision on what's going to happen with that property.
So you telling me anytime you see enhancement and improvement in the infrastructure, we need to be concerned.
You better be concerned.
I got you. That
And
mean
you
they
better
coming.
say to yourself,
They
well,
coming.
you better say to yourself, the current administrators not going to be involved in it. And then you're going to see a shift at most of these black colleges throughout America, where I looked at the stats. The black presidents at the black colleges and universities are usually in office 4.2 years.
Correct.
4.2 years.
Lack of stability.
And when they get to the point where they have the ability to do something, they are forced to resign or encouraged to resign, or somebody will get on the phone and arrange for them to have a leadership position at another school, and usually is out of state.
Well, Doc, there's two reasons I think. Well, first of all, Doc, I really don't know how difficult it is for people of color to work under this leadership model with IHL. You know, I don't know what it takes to work under a straw boss. Let me put it plainly.
Well, you want to hear the answer to that?
Talk to me.
Well, if you're working under a straw boss and you want to continue to be the one in charge, you say, what did you say? Dr. Rush, I want you to do the following.
Well,
Yes, sir, boss. That's how easy it is.
Maybe that's why we look at this 4.2.
That's exactly
And I guess in the equivalent, they have a lot more stability. Speaking of stability, you know, Alcorn was successful enough to get some of that Mackenzie Scott money. And she's been giving away left and right, Doc. I mean, millions of dollars. And for some reason, well, people tell me it's because of our lack of stability at Jackson State at this point, in that we don't have a permanent president. So hopefully when that occurs, we will get some of the Mackenzie Scott money that could address some of the issues that we have. But you didn't answer my question, Doc. I asked you, why is it we can't fix our resident hall? We got, I believe, Doc, when I'm mistaken, I'm gonna go on a limb and say 3, but I know for certain that 2 resident hall is offline. And our students sleeping all over the city. In some cases, going back home because they can't find lodging. I don't know. I never heard anybody say what's really wrong officially with the Palisades.
Well, they need to provide more maintenance down there. And that means money.
Well, I think they need to be clear about an explanation, if nothing else.
They don't have to give you an explanation.
Well, I see they don't.
They don't have to give it
But that leads me to believe that those resident halls shouldn't have been taken offline. They should have been repaired, maintenance, upkeep.
Well,
and if we built it on a site that was undesirable, then we should sue somebody. Because one thing for certain about projects, somebody approved them.
Well, of course. But now, who is going to sue? The man that I put in office to manage the project? Think about that, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are just talking as friends, Dr. Rush.
That's right. We're just kicking the can.
We're just talking. We call it a little family reunion.
That's right. That's right.
Talking about concerns and problems.
Every day is the only thing we missing, Doc, is old milk crate and cocoa.
That's right. And we just want you all to listen to these kind of things. This is not a Mississippi problem that we're talking about.
We stimulate.
It is all over America. 107 different so-called black colleges and universities. They all had the same problem. And they only have 2 sources of funding: tuition and what we call the alumni base model, where they ask you, Dean Rush, to give me $15,000 a year, and you give them $500. They have the students to pay their tuition out of loan. So they don't have enough money to build dormitories, because they're not going to get it from the original funding source.
Well,
and that's why the president's going to have to go out there and look at entrepreneurial deals. They're going to have to build collaborative efforts with others. And they're going to have to do something that I've been talking about for 30 years. They're going to have to start working with global funding strategies and initiative and get money from foreign countries where they can have a partnership with their students, with their banks, and with their large corporations, and ask some of those countries to give them $10, $30, $40 million to build dormitories. Now, this is not going to be allowed at the public schools, college and universities, but schools like Tougaloo and Russ can do this and get these funds from these international corporations.
Well, now we could have joint ventures at Jackson State if the state approved it.
Well, that's what I'm telling you, sir. That's not going to happen
in a public
institution, but it can happen at a private institution.
But let me run up some value for you. I didn't know that I would have got away on us, Doc.
Of course.
You know, I mentioned the 1877 project, the THE 1877 project.org. Please visit us on Facebook, because one thing for certain, nobody has ever said anything we say was a lie. So we standing on good data and good ground.
I've looked at that project on the computer.
Yes, sir.
And
But
you're exactly right.
Yes, sir.
It's solid, Doc. It's solid.
We're not playing games. And the Lord has put together an outstanding team of professionals. And hopefully when you look at them, you can identify with some of them. Feel free to give us a call. We're trying to build a coalition because we're getting ready for our next phase. This is not over. But what I want to share with you, Doc, before we close on the reservoir, we attended one board meeting and the board approved a $150 million project at Mississippi State to build a hospital for I said a horse hospital, but you know what I'm trying to say, with the animals, Doc.
Yeah.
Veterinary house.
Right.
To house the horses. You hear me?
I hear you.
$150 million. And our kids trying to find lodging in hotels in Natchez, in hotels in Jackson, in hotels in Greenville. Can you imagine commuting from Lorman to Natchez or from Inabena to Greenville just for housing or lodging?
It happens every day.
It's crazy, Doc. It's asinine. It's almost as though you don't want our students to be successful.
Of course.
But Doc, let me try to wrap on a good note.
Let's do it. We don't have but 30 minutes.
I want
30 seconds.
Ma'am. Certainly. THE 1877project.org. Doc, I really want to encourage all of our people, and I mean our people, to support our institutions. Get involved in some facet. Roll your sleeves up. Find a nickel or $20 and send to somebody to help somebody, because nobody's going to help us. It's crazy. I don't know if the world don't want African-American competition, but I get it.
Well, I tell you, I answer questions fast.
Talk to me.
It would be dangerous if the world would allow Black people just the opportunity to be competitive on an equal basis. You have a new resurgence as you had in ancient Africa.
Oh.
Everybody knows that most of the Black people that have the inability to do anything already dead. They either jumped off the boat or were pushed off the boat or killed or enslaved. And those Blacks that are left, even though they have been miseducated and discriminated against, if you turn them loose with equality and equity and put them in the same situation of any person in the world, they are supersede, even if they had to use a flashlight to learn the information. And that's what the people did in World War II when they had those Navy guys trying to be pilots and work as ship captains. They were the top students, worked at night in the bathroom with flashlights.
That's right.
And
we got to do this again.
They got out of this thing, man.
We done let